Hey there guys, welcome back, Ricky here. Okay, so today I'm doing another cut demo here, and I'm going to do two knives that people have been asking a lot about. I've got the Enzo HD chef knife here, or the Gyuto, and also the Nakiri. So the Nakiri versus chef knife, or Nakiri versus Gyuto, has been requested by a lot of folks. I'm making a tonic, and it's equal parts garlic, ginger, onions, pepper, jalapeno, and turmeric root with, what's the other ingredient? Horseradish. I've divided my ingredients here equally between the two knives. Hopefully it will be a decent demo for you guys. You know, this is what everything looks like. And a food processor could have done all of this in less than 10 minutes. So I don't recommend you doing this by hand unless you have to. I don't have a food processor, so... And if I had a food processor, I wouldn't have a channel like this. So the Nakiri was a fantastic performer. Now a lot of Nakiris I have used in the past are either really light in the blade department or really light in the handle department. The Enzo knives, these are actually made by Yaxol. If you guys don't know who Yaxol is a old knife manufacturer in Japan, one of the originals. They've been around for as long as any other of the major brands out there. A fantastic company. They make really nice high quality knives. If you can actually feel these knives, if you go to a store and look at a Yaxol knife, you can see that the ferrule and the handle, as well as the rivets and the end cap, there is no step in between them. They literally are like, it's like feeling one plane of material. Really fantastic fit and finish. The spine of this knife here, the Nakiri, is very nice. It's definitely squared, but very well polished, so there's no sharp edges anywhere. This is a VG10 core steel with a Damascus layering on both sides with a hammered finish. One of the biggest things with Nakiris and why they perform so well is because they are not very long, and so all your cut power goes into a 6 or 7 inches of length, versus on a chef knife, that power of yours is distributed amongst, let's say, 8 inches or 9 inches of length. So you have a lot more cut force when it comes to lateral chopping, which is really nice. And when coming down and coming across, all that power is generated and kind of put into a very small area. So cutting things like the onions, for example, when I had the pile of onions and I was chopping the mound of the onions, it made it really easy. Every chop was able to reach down into the cutting board, versus the chef knife. A lot of times when I was cutting the big mounds of onions, the chef knife never made it quite into the board when the pile of onions was put together. So in terms of the profile, because it is very straight and much more linear, when it comes to your push cuts, or your thrust cuts, whatever you want to call them, they are much easier on a knife with a straighter profile. They do generate more cutting power in your push cutting because of the straighter profile. On a chef knife, it's not that you necessarily lose your cutting power. You'll find that chef knives will have a better time slicing and pulling because of that curved profile. So they are just a little bit different in terms of how they generate power and how they will transfer your power from your hand into the ingredient that you're cutting. In a situation where you have to choose one or the other, it really depends on what type of food you're cutting. If you're like me and you favor more of a lateral chop, which I enjoy because I think that it's faster, it's a little bit more efficient, the Nakiris will definitely pull ahead in that department. What I was a little bit surprised about on the chef knife was, so even though it doesn't generate the same amount of cut power as the Nakiri, I was able to move a little bit faster in some of the cutting ingredients, such as on the onions, for example. I was not able to cut into the cutting board when the onions were piled up. However, I was able to bring the knife a lot higher, and so I was able to cut the mounds of onions with the knife rocking. And you can see here that the Nakiri, if I were to show you side by side, so both knives ran out on their respective bellies, but if I raise this to the tip of the knife, you can see that the chef knife is nearly double of what the Nakiri is in terms of its height. So this knife here, if you're doing a lot more slicing, where you're using the belly of the knife or the tip of the knife a lot more, the chef knives will definitely favor you more in terms of your cutting preference. If you're more like me and you like just to chop, the Nakiris would definitely pull ahead there. So, and I haven't talked about the chef knife at all. I haven't talked about the Nakiri a little bit more. Again, the spine, very well polished. This knife is actually very thin for a VG10 knife. A lot of VG10 knives tend to be a little bit thicker, again, with the core steel and because they clad them. This here looks like it's about maybe 2.2 millimeters. So a very thin knife, which definitely aided it in terms of its overall cutting performance. They have an ovalized handle. The really cool thing about their handles is even though they are ovalized, they are actually very narrow. So they give people with really big hands a good grip, even folks like me with smaller hands, a really nice grip as well. And they actually are ovalized not only in this profile, but also in their from top to bottom view as well. So just really comfortable handles. They are definitely one of the most comfortable handles out there in terms of a Japanese knife manufacturer. Both are fantastic knives. I really cannot fault any of these knives. They are wonderful, wonderful knives. Their designs are fantastic. If you've never held a Yakuza before, go pick one up. Go to your local store, check one out. And Enzo knives, or just Yakuza knives in general, are a little bit less money. They're anywhere between 10% to 20% less money than equivalent Miyabis or Shuns. I would say in terms of quality, they're just as good as any Shuns or Miyabis. In fit and finish, I would say they're just as good and sometimes maybe even better. Again, this is my tonic that I'm making. If you guys are curious about it, I will leave the list of ingredients in the description below. Alright, well that'll be it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Based on all of the feedback that you have given me these last few months of making strap blocks, I have started with this strap block here and have ended up with this here. So we went from a 3x9 hard corner edges to a 2.5 by 10 round edges strap block, and I really like the way they have turned out. They are now available. I have very limited supplies of these things. I only make about 2 or 3 dozen of these a month, and so I will leave a link in the video description to where you can find these blocks for sale. The leathers that I'm using for my strap blocks are lateral cowhide, buffalo hide, and shell cordovan horse hide. So the absolute best leathers that I can find. To all of my subscribers, thank you so much for supporting my channel and helping me grow my channel to where it is today. Without you guys, the channel would not be here. So I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.